This is another recording in the First Read series where I read a poem by a poet I don't know or know very little about and just read it for the sheer pleasure of a first read. So I don't theorize too much. I don't go into depth. I might read it differently if I come back to it later, especially if I've read more of the person's work. It might change things dramatically. So sheer first read, maybe it's worthwhile, maybe not. This is in Dream Pop Journal. Nice little online journal, and this is Adie Bovee. I know nothing about Adie Bovee, and I pick these fairly randomly. I just kind of click on things and find them and go from there to find things. There's a little thing about this poet at the very bottom of this page. You can read this if you're interested in it yourself. But here we go. Pulse. I just picked this one because the title and all of these pieces in this section, if you look through them, are just kind of boxy, look almost like little short prose poem stanzas. I always like to look at the form when I read something first. And this one, just like I said, seems like little prose poem boxes. I didn't see much going on otherwise, like traditional formulaic stuff happening in them, just without even having read it, just looking at it. So I'm just going to read it, see what happens. Pulse. 12 objects have 24 histories that push cart in front of their 240 feet. All right, a lot of numbers in that. 12 objects have 24 histories that push cart in front of their 240 feet. So the thing that jumps out there to me, weirdly, is the numbers, and the pushcart thing is the only thing I think of as a poet with pushcart thing is the pushcart prize. I'm not sure if that's being referred to here. The 12 objects have 24 histories. So these 12 objects have this kind of 24 histories. Each one of them has 24 histories. Not sure, that kind of multiplies. I think it's kind of interesting to think of all these objects having multiple histories. I can easily see how that would happen if objects happen. And they're pushing cart in front of their 240 feet. I'm not sure how the 240 feet relates to the 12 objects of 24 histories. And just do basic multiplication in my head. The 12 objects times 24 is not 240 feet. 12 would have to be times 20 to be that. So I'm not sure if they're relating here or if it's just the space around the objects. Two of mine, I'm not sure. Two of my histories or two of my objects. The reference there is not really clear. Maybe it doesn't matter. My first instinct is to go with the objects. Two of mine gave birth to me in Miami. Well, this is like a playing on the idea of objects as people giving birth to me in Miami, and 49 million died in Orlando. I don't know why 49 million died in Orlando. Who knows? Is this a play on Disney? Does Disney kill you? Is this the number of people going into Disney or Universal or whatever it is? But that brings up the 12 objects in the beginning. If the objects are people having all these multiple histories, like 24 histories, each one or collectively, and two of them with all these multiple histories are giving birth to somebody else. How much of that does that pass on? I'm not sure if that's really in here or it's just there. For them, the two of mine, I'm guessing, there's no difference between to conceive and to conceive of. It's a play on language. In the very first stanza, the objects and mine is a playing on language itself. There's no difference between to conceive and to conceive of, which is a very slight difference, but there's a difference there. But for her two objects, there is no difference. So the two objects themselves we're not thinking of it this way. Birthing takes up space that is needed by the birth, which is at least in its right place. Which is a play on, birthing, birth, we have conceive, conceive of. There's a lot of just language play happening here. But I think it's fairly interesting, but it's also kind of humorous with birthing takes place in a space that is needed by the birth, which is at least the right place. So birthing takes place in the right place, which is where the birth are, but that space is still needed. We have a play on the crowding with the 49 million, maybe. This is a play on crowding. There's time to try and try again if you have the trying matter to make. There's definite wordplay here, the try and try again, trying matter. I'm not sure what the trying matter is. Does this have to do with sexuality, or is this objectifying sexuality, or objectifying this human procreation as if it's just another thing that happens with objects? One half came from Louisiana, which I'm assuming is of mine again, where 32 million of us died in a fire upstairs. I'm not sure. Is this the histories? This might make more sense if I'm treating the numbers as histories here. 32 million of us died. Is if you start taking the number of objects and multiplying them, each object, by 24 histories, you start to get to the millions pretty quickly when you start to think of the number of people in all of these individual histories dying, whatever it is, the fire. Maybe it's a real fire, maybe not. Nothing inconsequential comes out of our house. When the wheat and wax mix, I have a few days to become bread. These kind of like connections here that aren't completely connected. I know what this poet is saying, but not quite what this poet is saying, which I think is part of the point here. It's close to sense without necessarily having traditional sense. And I don't mean that to say that poems need to have meaning. I think this is kind of playing on that space between wordplay and kind of narrative. And it's, on a border. I want to breathe out an idea that can't be consumed by the state or capital. I love this line. I think lots of poets want to be able to do this, put out this idea that can't be consumed. And I think perhaps the first three stanzas are playing on this. I feel like we're almost, as readers, there at figuring out what's happening, but not quite. So it's an idea. I can't quite consume it in a clear way. It doesn't mean I don't get it or understand it. Just not, mass production value idea. I want friendship that pulses orange and purple, passing around my limbs on the floor. My face is yours, and breast among us is a beam. I love how this last line kind of falls apart grammatically. I want a friendship that pulses oranges and purple, passing, because we even get this ampersand thrown in, which we haven't had up to this point, passing around my limbs on the floor. And then we get these this is like as if it's a run-on happening here. But it flows. It seems very purposeful. My face is yours, and breast among us is a beam, because we have these colors that wrap around thing, and they just don't allow for a separate sentence to happen, because they're happening in the image that we're being given in the end, which is sensual, but also friendship oriented. So I really kind of like that kind of end thing. It feels like the end. We get this pulse of color and purple and an idea that we can't consume, but we can kind of see and experience. That's interesting itself. All right. I like this one. It's a really lot of fun play in this one. I don't know that I completely understand it after the first reading, but I also feel like I don't have to. It's not really the point of this one. And it gives me a whole bunch of ideas to kind of think about and think through and kind of play around with. So I really, really like what's going on in that. So Adie Bovee, there it is. From Portland, or at least living in Portland. Pretty interested to read the rest of the pieces in here. That's it.